Hello, welcome back to my channel. Just thought I'd hop on here and quickly talk about a book that I just read. Um, I read The Girls Are Missing by Carolyn Crane. I read this as part of Horror Mayhem. This is, I suppose you probably call it a domestic thriller from 1980. Probably kind of a bit of early on when domestic thrillers started to take off. This was a very interesting book. So basically, the premise is we have Joyce Gilwood, who is now living in a suburb of New York, out in it's described as a pretty rural small town, um, but it's within a commuting distance to New York, and definitely in the 1980s, it's possible to take a train at a local train station in New York. So basically, she's moved in with her fairly recent husband into the suburbs. Has a newborn son who is, I think, between about 6 months. I think, yeah, she's getting. I think between 3 to 6 months. I think is the new son. It's a fairly new son. She has a daughter from a previous marriage. She did used to live in New York. Was married to Larry, who was a theater, kind of a theater actor kind of guy, and he was murdered as part of a mugging, and so that really was kind of the catalyst for Joyce to move into the safe haven of the suburbs, and she kind of talks about how she does feel this safety in the suburbs, and so summer's coming along, and her new husband Carl, or her recent, it's already been a couple of years maybe they've been married. So her husband Carl is he's working the city stuff. He has some vacation time coming up, and kind of looking forward to that. But also his daughter from a previous marriage is coming in. So we have his daughter, who's about 12. Joyce has a daughter, Gail, from Larry, who's I think about 9, and then we have the newborn son, Adam. And there's tension between Carl and his ex-wife Barbara. Joyce is kind of caught in the middle, but she does interact with Barbara, but she's been told one story from Carl, and she gets kind of a different vibe from Barbara. So basically, what Carl told her was that he left Barbara because he couldn't handle the nagging and the whatnots that a lot of guys will say. What we know about Carl is he's hard working, lives in the city, and he likes orderliness and clean. And pretty much every weekend he's out on the mower cutting the grass. He's kind of a person of routine. He doesn't really help out with the kids. He doesn't really seem that invested in their well-being, and not that bothered even by his new son. So yes, so right at the start of the novel, we're kind of just introduced to Joyce and kind of how she's living her idyllic dream. We see Gail with her friend go to this like secret place they kind of have. It's a bit of just a kind of a flowery. It's like a cave. There's a cave down there. There's brooks and there's the flowers. It's just kind of a bit from their property. It's like I said, it's a small town, so it's got a lot of rural kind of property on the backs and stuff. It's kind of within shot of their neighbor, Latimer, who seems to be potentially previously homeless, but just pretty much, very much someone who very much keeps to himself. He's described as smelly. He's definitely is drinking away a lot of his problems. Joyce is reasonably liberal about, like, Joyce is kind of like very much a liberal New York transplant, even though she did grow up in rural Pennsylvania. So this is kind of a bit of a coming back to what she was used to as a child. So she's not like super unfamiliar with a small town life. But she comes with the kind of mentality of just kind of leave people be and think the best of people. So early on, we hear, and I think it's through Barbara. So Joyce gets a telephone call from Barbara, organizing Carl's son. I think her name is Mary Ellen. Carl's daughter, Mary Ellen, to come for a visit, and she kind of mentions about these murders that Joyce was kind of completely unaware of. And so she finds out that, not murdered, two girls are gone missing. One was, I think, in their 20s, and one was a bit younger. So there's basically these two missing girls. They've been missing for a few months now. And so that gets her a little bit on edge, but she kind of thinks nothing of it. She doesn't really think it's any of her neighbors. I think one of the girls is from the city potentially or something, so, or at least commutes into the city. Kind of thinks potentially it's someone from the outside. Cut to a few days later, and the Gail and her friend go back to their secret place, and they see this bunch of leaves. It smells like horrid. There's flies. So they're pretty creeped out. So they go back to the house, and they tell Joyce. She goes, sees it, and is completely freaked out, and thinks the worst case scenario, calls the police, and it turns out it is one of the missing girls. And then she kind of gets really obsessed. She's following it. She goes to police meetings. A lot of people are convinced that it's Latimer. She kind of sticks up for him a little bit, being like she couldn't imagine it's anyone from the town. She just couldn't imagine anyone would be capable. It's such a friendly town. Meanwhile, Carl offhandedly mentions that one of the victims, one of the girls that was missing, I think it's the one that they did find, just randomly mentions that, he used to see her on the train to his commuting to work and back. And this kind of is a strange, Joyce thinks this is kind of a strange thing to mention, but then thinks nothing of it. And just more girls go missing and end up murdered, and Joyce kind of just spirals into this kind of fear and kind of awkwardness of not knowing, but she feels something in the pit of her stomach that just doesn't feel right. But it's kind of looking for the answers, but looking in the wrong places. It's a really well written book. I really enjoyed this. It's very tense. There's not a huge amount of horror. There's not a huge amount of gore. There's a couple of the bullets are described. Their injuries are quite horrific, and they are described, but not in any overly details. Just kind of the basic details of what happened to them. It's more the implications of what's happening, and it's this general cycle of fear, just this more and more fear and dread and Joyce going through like the thoughts just mounts until it comes to the crescendo. Um, and maybe the ending. No, I know. I enjoyed the ending. Has a little bit. The ending has some action. The ending, all the action is in the ending, but the rest of it is just kind of build up and pressure pot kind of thing. And the ending is a good payoff, I think. And I think what it does really well is kind of it brings this idea of the suburbs aren't safe. Like what can happen in the city could also happen in the suburbs because it's people. It requires people, and people live in both the cities and the suburbs. And yes, there's less people, and you generally know your neighbors better, but how well do you truly know people, even the people you're living with? I think it has a really good kind of feeling of second wave feminism too. There's definitely talk of female sexualization, and at what point are women or girls sexualized? Like, what point is that right? Has points about the male gaze, and should you be punishing girls for a kind of being themselves if it's attracting the male gaze? Like, isn't that more of a male problem? It's kind of discuss fatherhood. It's kind of implied that Carl is kind of not really cared too much about his daughter, and then he seems, when now she's 12, the other thing, she just gets her period as well on this trip. So there is the idea of reaching sexual maturity, and she's helping look after the baby. She's developing mothering instincts. So, and then suddenly Carl is a lot more interested in what she's dressing, who she's with, kind of being a bit more of a domineering father, which previously he was pretty laconic. To discuss things like that, there's a scene of non-consensual sex, and the woman involved, it's non-consensual sex between husband and wife, and the wife calls it rape to his face. So I think that's also that was a very strong point for it. So I think it has some of its social points really on there. So I really enjoyed that part of it. It's just as a good domestic thriller. I mean, I know Criminale is not a huge fan of the domestic thriller, but I think there's definitely a time when a lot of things was definitely very male-based, male protagonists, male killers, male viewpoints, and to really kind of have center not only a matriarch, but also to have it's not just centering Joyce. It's really her daughter, her stepdaughter, the other victims. I think it does a really good job of portraying the victims as people. They're not like super scoped out. It's through more kind of Joyce trying to find out about them and stuff. But we only find them as victims, but they're still given enough of a backstory and kind of dignity and death than kind of just being used as a fetishistic murder victim, essentially, that you do get in some horror novels. So yeah, very much enjoyed it. I've never read anything from Caroline Crane. I would, if I see a Caroline Crane book again, I definitely would pick up her books. Apparently, Summer Girl is one of her other big ones. It's advertised as author of Summer Girl at the bottom there. So that's probably one of her other big ones. I think she wrote pretty much 70s up until nowadays. I think. Yeah, pretty much had a good steady long career. Yeah, very much recommend this. This is part of the New American Library Publishers Signet. So good chance that you might come across this online or during your thrift store visits. So I think that's all I have to say about that. Let me know if you've read the book. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're reading for horror mayhem. I know the kind of point is to more read short stories and kind of have a real dip in lots of different kind of styles of horror, but I just kind of pick a short novel that I have and run with that. Might get another horror novel in before the end of the month, but I also have a few other things to read. So hope you're all having a good day, and see you later. Bye.